gameranx presents another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions on the newest games. Today, I'm Falcon, and as you might expect, that means it's a JRPG. As you can see, specifically, that means it's Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of an Elusive Age, and I can't think of a more appropriate title. An echo isn't exactly the same thing. When you echo a sound off of surfaces, it modifies the wave as it bounces back, but not so much it's unrecognizable most of the time, and that's exactly what Dragon Quest has given us in its 11th installment. Now, I've played about 12 hours of this game, and the story takes a few interesting turns after a few hours, and I'm going to do everything possible not to ruin that here, but that means we're not going to get too deep into the story. I'll say this, I enjoyed the fact that for a few hours I kind of thought I was in for something very typical, and then it kind of said to me, no, we're going to take this setup, throw you a bit of a curveball, and I'll say this, you go from thinking that you're going to be very important to the kingdom to being an underdog very quickly, and I think that this was a really good choice with the story that makes it interesting. It could have very easily been a setup that doesn't give us any actual conflict within the main character, but I will say a lot of the main character's interactions with the world are maybe not perfect. The characters are interesting. It isn't as if they're boring or two-dimensional, but they aren't something you haven't seen before. That said, they're acted really, really well. The cast is great. The localization team in charge of Dragon Quest XI is superb, and it exudes the kind of humor that a good localization typically has. JRPGs are not stale games. They have humor to them. It just makes the game teem with personality. That's not to say there are no NPCs that are kind of a bit bare bones in their dialogue, but that's just fine. We don't really play JRPGs specifically for NPC interaction, and I would say that this one is above average in that respect anyhow. Also, at very least, pleasant is the side quests. Now, I viewed them as basically optional as I was playing the game. I didn't get into a lot of them, but the ones that I did do didn't feel like long, annoying collectathons as some side quests sometimes do, especially in games that are very focused on a linear narrative like Dragon Quest XI. But when I did them, they were a nice, refreshing change of pace. They rewarded me with various useful things, and that felt good. Now, as for the baddies, oh, the baddies are good. There is such a variety of creative, fun, silly, over the top, and wild baddies to fight throughout the world. Some of them stick to much more conventional JRPG tropes, albeit with a lot of personality. That Akira Toriyama art is just absolutely phenomenal, and this has so much to do with how fun the monsters are. But let's talk a little bit about the battle system. There's a couple of ways you can play it. There's a freeform mode that I actually didn't enjoy very much. I thought it just kind of added a dimension to it that wasn't interesting, so I went back to the classic battle system, which is evolved maybe a little bit, but not a lot. It is essentially a standard JRPG battle system. It's turn-based. As you level up, you gain access to more abilities, magic. There is a welcome addition in being able to set a mode that the party acts in, although I think that more longtime JRPG fans will probably want to control characters individually. But I'm not going to say that my taste is completely right. If you happen to like the freeform battle system better, by all means, enjoy it. I just prefer the classic, but I would also prefer them to maybe refine it a little bit. To bring up Octopath Traveler, that is just a perfect evolution of a turn-based battle system. The conditional turn-based combat probably would have made this better. That's not really a new development, but something that they incorporated that was smart too. It added another layer of strategy that I felt like I really wasn't able to engage in here, and the freeform battling doesn't really do a lot in terms of the effects of your actions. I'm not saying that we need heavy innovation in the JRPG formula, but there's something to be said about doing something that you've always done, but doing it better than anyone else, and that's kind of where Dragon Quest XI is coming from. A nice addition is the crafting, and that's not something I would normally say about a JRPG, because in other games where they've incorporated crafting, it kind of feels very optional and at the same time necessitates a much quicker flow of items into your inventory, a lot more scavenging, a lot more collecting, and fortunately Dragon Quest doesn't kind of force that on you. You do have to find items to craft items, obviously, but for whatever reason it seems like less of a chore in this game and more of a actually enjoyable thing to engage in. Again, this might be because the game is linear and presents opportunities to collect items that you need on a fairly, I think, planned basis, which helps. Now, when a lot of people say a game is linear, that is often viewed as a means of criticism, but I'm actually going to go ahead and say that the fact that Dragon Age 11 is so linear is one of its main strengths. The pacing of this game is unmatched by pretty much any open world game, and it gives you enough in, like I said, the side quests that if you want to slow down and do some of the more sometimes kind of open worldy feeling stuff in the side quests, not to say that it makes the game open world, but some of the objectives are very familiar to people who play open world games. It really works. The rhythm of this game just works so good. I've probably played a handful, maybe 3-4 open world games that are paced as well as Dragon Quest XI, and out of how many open world games I've played, that should be saying a lot. But even in the realm of JRPGs, I would say that the pacing of Dragon Quest XI is miles ahead of its competition. It is a top tier game. And although I have minor complaints, these complaints I think only merit mentioning because it's a great game that if you like the JRPG genre, you're pretty much gonna love. There's no chance you won't. Also, I'm gonna have to go ahead and say this. This is a game that proves in every way that there is so much life in the single-player game, in the narrative-driven game, in the experience of immersing yourself in a world that you don't have to build yourself. Dragon Quest XI Echoes of an Elusive Age is, again, an appropriate title. In a time of live services and microtransactions, it is a beacon of hope that shows us just how good narrative-driven traditional games can be. At times, I think maybe it doesn't go far enough in updating what it's doing, but it's in such a way that I consider it to be a minor complaint. The visuals and presentation are unparalleled, it's beautiful, it's fun, the music's great. Most of the choices made by the developers are just phenomenal. It's wonderful. If you like JRPGs, this is a game you're going to have to try, and I can't wait to get to the end. I've been glued to it since I started playing it. Like I said, I'm 12 hours in, and I've experienced not even a lot of the game. It's apparently 80 to 100 hours worth of gameplay, and I feel like I've gotten my money's worth already. So that's a pretty glowing recommendation if you're looking for something to play. To anyone out there already playing it, what did you think? Do you care to back me up on this opinion, or do you have maybe more major complaints than I do? I think it's a tour de force and a statement that we really shouldn't count single-player games out yet. And everyone else, are you going to play this game? I hope. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Now, if you liked this video, if it was helpful or just enjoyable, do us a favor, click the like button, and if you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter @FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.